الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبعهم في إحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So there's a question that was given to me that was a good question, and it's something that comes across a lot. And there are some things I want to answer about the question, as well as give a couple other notes when it comes to this issue. So, of course, I recently posted a post showing some of the works of those who are called Wahhabis that have done a ton of work when it comes to combating atheism. And something that is commonly assumed is that Salafis don't know how to debate philosophically, and that they're somehow philosophically incapable of like standing their ground philosophically without coming back to Qur'an and Sunnah, and the only thing that they can rely on is Qur'an and Sunnah to defend their position. And this, it comes from a lack of understanding or a lack of awareness of the actual reality of the situation, because if you actually look at a lot of all of the Salafis, in the most part, everyone agrees right now as a Salafi, most Salafis, they would all assume and they would agree to the fact that Ibn Taymiyyah is not a mubtadi'. This is pretty much every single person that's a Salafi. They would all agree that Ibn Taymiyyah is not a mubtadi'. And they would say the same thing about Ibn Qayyim. And we would look at this, we would say, yes, every single Salafi has agreed that they are not mubtadi'. Now, some of the Salafiyah they have fallen into different places, and of course, when we take some of the statements of the early Salaf, we will find that we will have a lot of blame upon people getting involved in al-kalaam or getting ilm al-kalam. There's going to be a lot of problems with this, even all the way back to Imam al-Shafi'i. He talks about this, and this is because people are going into the deep end of where they have no knowledge except just logical conclusions, coming up, building a premise, and then building off of this premise and building off of this premise, and then coming to a conclusion about who Allah is. And that premise right there is basically void. Like the basis of it has to be void of the Qur'an and Sunnah. They say so that they can come to a conclusion that they can agree with the that they can like have a binding argument for the philosophers and those atheists that went against Islam. And so if you look at the works of the modern day Salafis and whatnot, look at their works in atheism, and you'll find that they don't have to rely strictly on the Quran and Sunnah when they're doing their arguments, and they don't always do this. Yes, of course, the Quran and Sunnah is filled with arguments, and some of the books I mentioned there, and they talk about this. And of course, the Quran and Sunnah is filled with logical arguments, even if you don't believe that this is from Allah. Okay, but like, did they create themselves, or were they themselves created? Like how is this coming about? So thinking about some of these things that come up in the Quran, of course, anything that is put into existence when he wasn't put into existence before it has to have something to put it into existence. This is something logically that you'll even find even in some of the books I've been going over, and I've been teaching what is it, Durratul Bayan fi Usul al-Iman by Sheikh Muhammad Yusri. And when I go over this book in there, there's actually like this logical conclusion of every single thing that is put into existence must have a mujid. Like it has to have something to put it into existence. And of course, this is something simple. We definitely can see that there are certain simple aspects of just logical reasoning that can make us come to an understanding that there must be a creator that put us here. All right, and the Salafis, for the most part, we don't have a problem with this, and there's not a problem with us having logical conclusions that can be binding an argument. Now, if we going back to Ibn Taymiyyah, and people who actually have read a lot of Ibn Taymiyyah's work, which sadly I wish the Salafis would read more of his works, because they'll benefit a lot in a lot of areas. And this is ultimately, people will call me a Wahhabi. They'll call anyone who doesn't agree with Ash'ari Wahhabiyah. And so if you were to call me Wahhabi, I'm like, you're pointing me to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. I myself have some minor issues with some things that maybe not he was problematic in, but the people that came after him, they had some problems, without a doubt, when it comes to the issue of takfir and coming across the conditions and whatnot. And I would rather not be ascribed to them. So, but if you were to describe me to Ibn Taymiyyah, I'd be like, yeah, okay, there we go. It's like for the most part, Ibn Taymiyyah, like I could see that I'm more in line with him than all the other people. So if someone was to call me a Taymiyyah or like a Taymi, I'd be like, okay, this is understandable. Like if you're on the assess that you are Ash'ari, and I call myself a Sunni, which ultimately means Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and you also call yourself a Sunni, how am I going to separate this? So I'd go back to someone who actually brought out a lot of the views of the Salaf and actually brought them into the light of a refutation of ilm al-kalam with their own terminology. And this is something that Ibn Taymiyyah did. And if you look at the works of At-Tadmuriyah, and in particular, and also, of course, his other bigger books, they are filled with philosophical arguments, filled to the brim with philosophical arguments. And also, you'll find right alongside of it, all of it is backed up with Qur'an and Sunnah at the same time. And his philosophical arguments didn't go to a point where he now is stuck in a situation where he has to deny the attributes of Allah, such that Allah is above his throne, or that Allah is not able to speak in a language that someone can, in someone's own language. So, like, can Allah speak to you in your own language? Ask this to any Ash'ari. Can Allah speak to you in your own language? This is impossible to them. Like they say, Allah can't do this because if it were, then it would mean this and it would mean this and it would mean this, and then we'd be mujassima, and we'd be a kafir. And this is how this they would go down a certain line, and they don't believe that Allah could speak to someone in their own language. They're like, oh, okay, a language is created, and if a language is created, then Allah is speaking with something that's created. Then this would be this, that, and the other. And they go down a whole rabbit hole, and at the end of the rabbit hole, you ask, can Allah speak to you in a language that you can understand? Can he or no? No, he can't. All right, you're going against Imam al-Bukhari. Imam al-Bukhari, inside of his like going to the open up book of Tawheed, like the Kitab al-Tawheed, Imam al-Bukhari, he goes against the Jahmiyyah, and when he talks about he goes against them, he gives a hadith over and over again about how Allah calls, and then he'll give Allah how Allah calls people yunadi, and also waqala Allahu, and he uses these words waqala Allah to give a refutation of this. So he'll give his chapter title about Allah speaks and Allah kalam Allah, and then he'll give waqala Allah. And so, in the fact that Allah will say these things, and will yunadi bisawtin, and so like that He will call with a voice that is heard, and so of course like this is something that Imam al-Bukhari held this, and it's not like Ibn Taymiyyah has a new view of this. So when we go through, and also Ibn Taymiyyah in particular with this particular issue, one of his best refutations of the Ash'aris and the Kulabiyya and them is in the book of Tisayniyah. And in this book, he breaks it down. He breaks down this whole idea of the meaning of this, because of course you have a kalam, and kalam is not simply sound, and it's not simply words, and it's not simply letters, but it's all of them together alongside of with a meaning. When all these things come together, it's understood as kalam. So you have letters. Yes, you have letters. Is it just letters by itself or no? No, it's letters accompanied with words that are put in together in a certain order. Okay, and you also have words that are put together in a certain order, but is it just this by itself? No, it's also alongside of meanings that are put together. And this is what is understood as kalam. And there you won't find kalam other than this in the original ways of the Arab. And then if you want to go get something and say that, okay, what about that that the mouth or the mouth only gives that which is inside the heart of kalam and whatnot. This is, of course, this particular this particular bait that they use as like shared to prove that okay, kalam is not like this. It's like it's first off, he's a Christian. Do we take his real ideas in our theology? No. Okay, what if we say, is the bait even, like, is this bait even authentically attributed to him? There's a whole bunch of discussion about this. Okay, if there's a lot of discussion about this, this is like bringing something that's ahad into an issue of a debate that is supposed to be an aqidah. Do you guys take ahad evidences for aqidah? No, you don't take ahad evidences as al-Qaeda. Okay, so you take this. And now, is what he actually said, is this actually proving that there is such a thing as words that don't exist in reality that is actually considered kalam in the Arabic language? No, not necessarily. And even in itself is allegorical. So that's a whole nother issue. And then going down to this, but basically I'd ask you is like, do you believe that Allah can speak to you in your own language? If you say no, then we have a problem. Yeah, we have a problem because this is something that the Salaf were agreed upon this issue, and this is why the people that get involved with these like these philosophical arguments, they come to a point when they say that Allah cannot speak, and this is why they're called al-kalaam. They talk about the sifat of kalam, and they talk about a whole lot. And at the end of the day, they either are like the Mu'tazilas. They say Allah can't speak, but He creates kalam, and the kalam is created that we get in the Quran. This is created. Okay, that's one deviant. Or you get the other side of it, of the Asharis, who say the exact same thing. The Quran is still created, and then they add another idea, and they say, but the kalam that is for Allah, it's something that is without any order. It's not in any type of language. It's not in the Quran, and the Quran is merely like a reference to that. But the Quran itself is created. When you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, all the way to min al jinnati wan nas, all the way, all of this kalam here, none of this is kalam Allah. This is all created. This is all created in kalam and what they have to say. But they affirm something else, and they also call it Quran. And I would love to hear whatever the Quran is that is referred to in the Quran and Sunnah that isn't referring to the actual Quran that we recite. Even the word itself means like Quran, it actually like fa'alan, it actually like refers to something that is actually recited. And so like this is something it's a very long discussion to go into the kalam and this issue. But what happened with this is the Ash'aris, when they went up against the disbelievers of the atheists and whatnot, and they went against them, and they started fighting and fighting and fighting them, and they would debate with them. Occasionally, they would hold on to certain premises, and they would affirm a certain premise, and they would take a stance in this. And later on down the line, this premise came back to bite them. How? It came back to end up with them negating some of the things that Allah says about Himself. And so, if it wouldn't have negated anything that Allah said by itself, would this have been a problem? Just that they're refuting people in a language that they understand. It's not necessarily a problem. The problem is that this led to bad consequences. And so, and a lot of times, those bad consequences that it led to, these are something that the original, like Imam al-Ash'ari, he would not hold to these logical conclusions that it would come to. But people down the line, such as Ahmadi and Razi, they would come to these logical conclusions, they would affirm them. And this is why they went farther. They went down the line when they would say like lawazim al-qawl. Like they would go all the way down the line with this. And so, is it wrong for us to have a logical discussion against them? No, it's not necessarily wrong to us to have a logical discussion against them unless this logical discussion ends up with us refuting something that is affirmed by the Quran and Sunnah. And this is the issue here. And so they talk about, Ahlul Hadith do not permit such debates. And so he's like, did Imam Ahmed debate with atheists, Imam Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari, and they would debate. And so like there are some people who debated and there's some people that didn't debate. And of course it's not for every single person to jump up on a stage and start debating. Someone has to be well versed in the way of debating, as well as they need to be well versed in their own theology so that they never fall into a sticky position where they're going to be bound to either reject a part of the Quran or Sunnah or say something that they don't know inside of this. And this is a problematic situation. If somebody gets stuck in a position where then they have to take a position because the other side is pushing, and then they take a position that goes against the Quran and Sunnah in one way or another because they don't want to destroy the debate that they are doing on that. So back to Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah in his many works, he proves the existence of Allah, and he also destroys every single type of philosopher, as well as he gave evidence for Allah's existence that didn't go against the Quran and Sunnah at the end of the day, and didn't go against anything that we would find of what Ahlul Hadith actually talked about. He would not go and he would never go against them, and he would always be within what was understood from what they had to say. And so, of course, this is a long discussion, but the main point of this is, can someone have a philosophical discussion with somebody with the basis using their kalam arguments and whatnot? Yes, theoretically, yes, as long as it doesn't go against negating Allah's attributes or affirming something that Allah did not affirm for Himself, or negating something that Allah did not negate from Himself. Wallahu musta'an. And so there's also another thing that I want to talk about as well. and I'll probably leave this to the next video in this issue, but this is the issue of the great contribution that we have from the people of like the Ash'aris and whatnot. And people say, how can you guys are basically dependent on the Ash'aris? And without a doubt, there is so much contribution that they have done. This is without a doubt. Nobody can deny the contribution that Ash'aris have done, that Maturidis have done, and also that Mu'tazilis have done, and that the Ahlul Hadith has done without a doubt. Anyone can open up the books of the Sunnah, and you won't find anyone except Ahlul Hadith inside of the books of Sunnah. And this is also another thing. But I want to talk about that in the next video. But this is just an idea of talking about, okay, can a person actually have a philosophical debate with somebody while referring to speaking to people on the level that they are at? And is this possible? Yes, it's possible. Ibn Taymiyyah did it. Yes, he did it. And yes, he would also use Qur'an and Sunnah as well, because this is also the most logical evidences. Yes, okay, maybe the person doesn't agree that the person saying it is speaking on behalf of Allah. Maybe he doesn't agree that what he's saying is right, but the actual logic within it will never be going against true, like a very logical brain. It will never go against it, unless the only way it would go against it is if that brain doesn't work right, or if that brain is thinking about it improperly. And this is the only problem that someone would have in this. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So if you want to see more of these videos, please like, subscribe, and also share with other people that you think would benefit from this. And also, if you want to support it, feel free to support the dawah that I'm working on. And also, if you have a problem with me talking about these issues that are between the Ash'aris and the Salafis and this issue, I'm sorry. My goal is never to break people or put hatred in people's hearts. This is not the issue, and not something that I would ever want to do. And some people are talking about, why are you talking about this issue? This is you're creating fitna. I'm not creating fitna. There's fitness here. I want to talk about it so we can bring it into the light and discuss it, and actually come to, we can come to something that is common ground between us, and we can get to a point where we stop doing takfir on each other, because this is not beneficial for anyone, and we can work together in the things that we agree upon, and we can choose to go our own ways in some of these other areas where we're not at a place where we can solve this solution ourselves. In some of these debates, of course, between lay people, there's no point for the people to have debates. There's no point, even for students of knowledge, there's no point for them to have the debates. It's just going to take up a ton of time, and they aren't even qualified to speak on behalf of their own madhab, much less to speak on behalf of why the other one is kufr. And this definitely happens occasionally, and I've seen this before. And at the end of it, someone's just calling someone else a mujassima, and of course, this is not befitting of another Muslim, especially when this basically means kafir. And no one should be doing this. And the same thing, calling people Jahmis and whatnot. Like this is not befitting of Muslims to get into this name calling between each other, and it's also not befitting for Muslims to get involved talking about things that they haven't researched properly yet, and they're just parroting things that they've heard from other people. And I would pray that I don't ever fall into this, and that we don't fall into this. And if you have something good to say, say it. If you don't have something good to say, then keep it to yourself. And this is what the comment section is and isn't for. والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك.